We are going to try to establish a few building blocks today and go through some things that you can build on and give you a little bit of confidence as you enter your office that first day. And it can be intimidating, we know. But before we get too far into things, we do have a lot of you here today, but we really would like to know a little bit about your backgrounds. How many people in the room are brand new to the courthouse? Okay, maybe not quite half. So, and how many of you, this is the first time you're going to be in the office you were just elected to? Okay, almost everybody. There's only a few of you that are returning after being somewhere else. Well, it's good to see. It's, there's always kind of a mixed bag, and I would normally make you all introduce yourselves and tell us individually, but we'll try to work on getting your names and faces put together, but no promises that we'll get it perfect every time. Right, Nancy? Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah. We'll try to pick a girl's name. It'll be fine. We do want this training to be somewhat informal. Please feel free to ask questions. Your questions, we're fine with the fact that your questions may just drive where this training goes today, and that's all right. If you have a question today, especially of all days, there's no stupid questions. January and February, there's no stupid questions. And well into your first year, there's no stupid questions. And if you have the question, chances are someone else does too. So please don't hesitate to ask. We want you to feel like this is your opportunity to do that without your staff's eyes beating down on you saying, we all know the answer to that. Why don't you know the answer? So please feel free to ask and interrupt at any time during this. One of the things that you do need to know about before we get too much into our PowerPoint presentation is that you need to know how you're going to get paid for being here this day and a half. And you are entitled to be here on the county's dime. So we're careful to make sure we spend that money appropriately and give you some training, but at the same time, we don't expect you to pay for it yourself. You will, at the end of this training, we will get the registration information from the AIC, and we will send a certification of all of the names and the dates that you attended to your county auditor, the current county auditor. We will then ask that you will submit a claim when you get back for your lodging expense, your mileage if you drove here, and as you return home. Also for the food purchases that you've had since you've been here. You may have to have receipts to support those food purchases, and in some counties, the council has put a cap, a limit on what your food purchases at the State Board of Accounts called conferences are. So you will just be entitled to the food you purchase on your own, but you will put that all on the claim and submit it to the county auditors. When they get the claim and our certification, they'll be able to audit the claim and then submit it to the Board of County Commissioners at their next meeting to make sure that you get compensated. The compensation is from unappropriated funds. So when you get reimbursed, there should be no holdup by that you spent money out of somebody's budget or you took the last dime they had in their budget to spend. This is from unappropriated dollars, and so there should not be an issue with the current auditor not wanting it to pay it out of their budget. They will not have to do that. So hopefully everyone can manage that, and if there are any problems, please do not hesitate to contact us. We do not yet have all of your emails and everything down, but we're going to work with the AIC to get all that together once you get into office. Yes. Yes. Our law doesn't specifically allow for the registration fee to be paid from unappropriated, but it does need to be paid. It is a county, so if they don't have an appropriation, they need to find one to pay you. And that may take a little bit longer. If the auditors in your county do pay it, the registration fee from unappropriated, we've never taken audit exception to it, but we understand if there's just trying to be technically correct, we can appreciate that, and they'll just have to work with you to get that appropriation because you have a right to be here. Yes, Ann. Nancy. Yes. Well, that makes it difficult. Yeah, it's not, it's not state called. It might be valuable training to the county to pay for, but what if she doesn't get appointed? I mean, you guys are, for the most part, you've already been elected. You're entitled to your term unless something extremely tragic happens that we don't want to see, and we never have had that issue where, the county wasted its dollars. I mean, once you're elected, our law allows you to come. And we probably have a couple of appointed officials in the room too, and we welcome you. But before you're appointed, I think it would be difficult for any county to justify paying that. And certainly you can reimburse it after the fact, but when they're basically a private citizen at that point, and the county doesn't have a basis to pay that expense for them to get training. Yes.
I thought that the registration was to be paid out of that county elected officials training, because that's where we pay my registration from. Is that right?
That's a possibility if you are one of the officials that's required to have training. So auditors and treasurers, there's a technicality in there that says, technically that law says you are required to have the training if you were elected after November 6th of 2012. Well, you were elected on November 6th of 2012. So there is kind of a caveat of whether you're actually required to have that training or not. We want you to go ahead and do it, and I think it behooves you to go ahead and do that. But I know they write those laws in such a manner because they are not trying to put on requirements on people who have not been elected yet. And not surprise you if you put your name in to be a candidate and then you find out, oh, well, there's additional requirements after the fact and you've already put your name in. They try not to do that. So we won't take exception if there was a budget for your registration fee to be paid from the county elected officials training fund. That's fine. It's an appropriate expense from that fund, but it may not be that case in every county that everybody's got that appropriation in place to be able to do that. It's much better if it gets paid out of the unappropriated, because that county elected officials training fund, in some counties, it doesn't have very much money in it. And we now have clerks, recorders, surveyors, auditors, and treasurers all getting training out of that fund. That's 5 officials. That's pretty pretty tight for counties that I've heard, like, I think Benton County told me that at the time last year, they only had $750 in that fund. So that's not going to go very far for 5 elected officials to get training. So do be conscious of that when you go into the office. You're going to have to look at your budgets and see what you have available. Yes?
In my case, I was appointed in August, but I will take office in January. So which account would they pay for my training from?
I am hopeful that they will give you a budget to pay for your training, except for the state called meetings that where a lot of the expenses do get paid from unappropriated expenses. And you'll notice on the letter that we sent out to you to call you to this meeting, we stated exactly what you were going to be entitled to: lodging the night before each meeting, meals that you paid for to attend this conference, mileage to and from this conference back to your county. And if you rode together, auditor and treasurer, then only one conveyance gets, or one person gets the mileage check. If you drove on your own, you would certainly put in for the mileage. So you'll have to go to the current auditor and get that claim form. Yes?
The only thing I haven't heard you mention is the salary. So for those of us that are here, are we on our own? Do we not get reimbursed for our?
You will not get paid from the county unless you are currently a county employee or official.
And that's, okay.
If you are currently an employee,
Which department pays?
your
Our
current,
auditor said she didn't know.
there won't be a salary. You will be paid your regular salary. You are here on county business, even though it's not the office that you are currently maybe working in that you will be going to, but it's your current, where your salary is currently budgeted from. You will get your regular pay for being here because you are here on county business.
Is there a code?
Yes, but you'd have to rely on several of the budget laws to get there. It's basically the salary ordinance, which is IC 36-2-5-11, and the actual ordinance itself, the wording of that ordinance, and in combination with a lot of other things. But that would be my basis for submitting your regular pay voucher for being here. You should not be docked pay to come to this conference. Now, if you have a job at State Farm Insurance and you're here for training, thank you for being here, but I can't guarantee State Farm Insurance is going to pay you for your time. That's something that they have to make a decision about. Okay. Yes.
Does it matter what calendar year we're being reimbursed in for this training?
No. That's a good question. Some of you, if you have difficult situations where the current auditor doesn't quickly process your claim, they don't receive the certification from us or lose it or something, I encourage you to contact us to get the certification yourself, and then you may just have to pay it next year when you take office, and that's fine.
That I would have to just wait until after the first of the year
Yeah.
to turn this in to get reimbursed.
You may want to, since you're being told that you need to wait to turn in the claim. It might not be there when you get there if you do it now. I hate to say that, but I would hope for not having that type of transition, but certainly you can pay it when you get into office. Also, it is getting late in the year, and some counties only pay claims once a month. The claims have to be submitted at least 5 days before the county commissioners meeting at which the claim will be considered. So if we don't get everything in just in time and your commissioners don't meet late in the month, it may be difficult for you to even get paid this month anyway. But some of you will get that accomplished. And if you don't, please make sure you get reimbursed next year. With that, let's jump into the PowerPoint. We're going to start by talking a little bit about who is the State Board of Accounts. We are the audit agency for the state of Indiana. And I know yesterday you heard from the state auditor. Well, the state auditor, Tim Berry, is basically the state's controller. He is your counterpart at the state. He is just like the county auditor, but he's the state auditor. The people who actually do the audits of government are called the State Board of Accounts. And our boss is Bruce Hartman, who was here yesterday as well. Actually, we are run by a 3-member board. So the state examiner, Bruce Hartman, and 2 deputy state examiners. We are not to be of all the same political party, so we are bipartisan. Our board is bipartisan, but they are appointed by the governor. We were created basically in 1909 because there was a huge public outcry about all of the public corruption that they were seeing in the newspapers, that they were finding when they would go in to get services or pay bills at these cities, towns, counties, everywhere. And so we were created to audit governments. We audit all local governments, including schools, townships, counties, libraries, cities. We audit state agencies. We audit universities. We audit not-for-profits. Lots of things that you might deal with even in your counties called special districts, things like sewer districts, that kind of things. Conservancy districts.
Can you do audits upon request? Because we have a conservancy district, and I'm writing down questions to ask you. Lake McCoy Conservancy District, they're very, very worried about what the gentleman who has control of money is doing with it. So the citizens are asking for an audit. Do they contact you and request that? Or?
The citizens can petition our office to do an audit. I can't remember off the top of my head what the process is or how many signatures, but it's not a lot of signatures, I don't think.
Can you
Is
just
it 25?
in the conservancy district?
Yes. It should be, yeah, I think it's like, we think it's probably 25 or less signatures. So if the people who are taxpayers in that district want to petition for an audit, they can do so. We don't have the greatest number of resources, as you know, right now, but we will, if there's if you ever find that you have actual evidence, documents of things that went wrong, even if you just have one and you don't know if it's an isolated instance or there's, this is systematic and this is just happening. You have a paid receipt, but they don't show it paid on the tax rolls or any of those situations, please contact us. We want to know about those situations where there's actual documentation and there's a concern that the persons that might be perpetrating some kind of misappropriation of assets are still in office, then we need to get in there pretty quickly. If they've been terminated and the records have been accumulated from that person and isolated and taken under custody of a board or, like the Board of Commissioners or in a conservancy district or township, their board, then we still want to be notified, but we know maybe we don't have to get in there right away. We can wait till it's, we have a systematic or a plan to go in and look at these records. If you just want to request an audit because, we'd all like to have a very clean transition, get that audit so I know when I take office it's all good. We'd love to do that for you, but we really don't have the manpower. What we do is there's very clear cutoff of responsibilities. You don't have any responsibility for anything before you take office on January the 1st. So there's, no danger that you're going to get rid of the past person's records that may have been used to prove that they did something wrong. So we're going to just use that cutoff date, make sure that we do come in to audit each year in every county. And so we will try to make sure that you're very aware of what we do find during that previous audit, but it probably will not happen right away. I mean, there's no way we could get it done between now and the time you need to take office, but we will, the normal county cycle begins in January. You're going to have some things that we'll talk about later today that need to get done so that we can have financial statements to audit in your counties. But we will be starting county audits very early in the year. So be prepared for that. All the audits are done by our field staff, and they live all over the state of Indiana. We're spread out. At this point in time, I think we have 1.8 field examiners for each county, and that would be great if we just audited counties, but that's for all the audits, all the governments that are within a county. So we may be stretched pretty thin, but we seem to be getting it done. We're going to work on making some improvements on our end, but certainly we want to make sure that you do still get your services. Audits can be very important. No one likes an audit. It's an inconvenience, and it's hard to hear the auditors come in and say, yes, we're here to help you. Yeah. But it's one of those things that has to happen. For one thing, remember, everything you do is now in the public eye. Whether that's fair or not, that's just the way that it is. So we have to give the public some assurances. Hey, we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing. Also, counties get a lot of grant money. Grantors require audits of those monies, and we want to make sure that you can continue to get grant money. So we want to make sure you have the right kind of audit, and that audit information gets back to the grantors the way they've required it. If you are a county that expends over $500,000 in federal aid assistance, then you will be audited earlier in the year than those counties that don't expend over $500,000. And the reason for that is that the federal government requires that audit to be filed with them by September 30th each year. So, that you can give you an idea of when you can expect to see field examiners coming in to do their audit work. We issue a lot of reports every year. We've counted them a few times. It's always over 2,000. I think that the DLGF and our office agree approximately that there's over 2,600 governments in the state of Indiana. But we also file some not-for-profit reports and things that they would not be concerned with at the DLGF. So there's a lot of governments, and that there's plenty to keep us busy as well. One of the other things that we do besides audit is we are to prescribe the accounting system. We do this in a really roundabout, antiquated way. We don't expect you to use a manual system at a county. It's just not appropriate anymore. It can't be done with staff. It's not efficient. But our law doesn't allow us to prescribe a computerized system to you. So over the years, we've been around over 100 years, and we've prescribed a manual system. You can use computerized systems, but you have to have some of the records approved so that we can see that there is information there for us to audit when we come in to audit. and there's a process for that. But basically, it's a system of regulations now. You can see the manual forms to view examples and to gain information about what it is in your system that you'll be looking at, what data and how it's going to be processed. But in the end, it's a system of regulations that spells out your accounting system. And those regulations are called Uniform Compliance Guidelines. And we issue those in our manuals and in the County Bulletin, which is a quarterly publication that we do. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about those things and where you can find them. The manuals are great tools if you know how to use them. But unfortunately, Debbie and I have not done all that we can to keep those up to date, or maybe we've done all we can, but it's just not been possible to keep them up to date. So they reference codes. Sometimes the code's changed. The process is still the same, but the code may have changed some, so you have to look those up. So one of the things that we have made our goal this winter, when we don't have as much training going on in the first few months of next year, is that we will start issuing chapters of manuals that have been updated and revised. We may not get the whole manual done, but we're going to send out some chapters and at least be able to give you some guidance that way. And we'll let you know where you can find these manuals. Since they're all online, it's pretty easy for you to say, well, I think I'll just look at the tax sale chapter when we get to tax sale, and I'm not going to look at that right now. And right now, I'll just look at the claims chapter. Or if a chapter is really antiquated, maybe not look at that one as much as let's spend time on some things that have been updated. You may want to spend more time looking at the county bulletin because those are issued quarterly and they're kept up to date. So that may be a better source for you. We issue those county bulletins in January, April, July, and October each year. And they are just available on our website, but what we do is once we have your email addresses, we will be sending you a notification to remind you that, hey, the new bulletin is out, you can take a look at it. We do recommend that you kind of go through those bulletins, look at the articles that affect your office. It won't be every article, so it won't take a great deal of time, and maybe highlight a few things that do apply to your office specifically, and then just disregard the rest of it. Let's look at our organization chart. Just so that you can kind of understand how to work better with us, we thought, well, we'll talk a little bit about this, and you'll probably never hear it again, but here it is. Like I said, we are run by a 3-member board, and they're in the center there, the state examiner and the 2 deputy examiners. You can see directly to the right, county office supervisors, that's me and Debbie, and we're going to be your main point of contact. But sometimes you will get a question from a township trustee, or you'll get a question from a conservancy district. And so as those people have questions, you can see we have supervisors that work in all those other areas too, that are just like me and Debbie, but they work for cities and towns, or they work in the area of not-for-profits or schools and townships. And so we can certainly help to direct those people to the right supervisor so that they also can get their questions answered and have their issues addressed. At the very top, you can see we have field supervisors. They're the ones that make sure all the audits get done. They have staff, and they plan all of the audits, organize them. Some audits are done on a 2-year cycle. Counties are done on an annual basis. They have to plan using their staff to figure out how those audits are going to get done, when they're going to get done. And so if you have some issues in your office where you're going through a computer conversion, or you have something that's going on that's big and just can't at this time really accommodate field examiners coming in and they are going to ask for a lot of information. They're going to ask you to pull information. They're going to ask you to bring up screens, and print reports for them. If, do not hesitate to contact the field supervisors if you have concerns like that and you want to say, look, I'm looking at a computer conversion. Please don't bother me in April. If you can avoid it, try to go somewhere else, and I'll help you any other time. And I think that they welcome that information as well, so that they can plan properly, because they need to get their staff in and out as well. And if it's just a situation that's temporary where we need to work together, they would welcome doing that. Okay, on the next chart, you can see that the board is at the very top. You have the field supervisors we just talked about being in charge of getting all the audits done, and they have field examiners underneath them, so they have a staff. You can see office supervisors in the center, where we're equal with the field supervisors. We don't organize their work. We don't supervise their work. They don't supervise our work, but we do try to work together. If their field staff is, pretty new to working on county audits, they'll call us. They'll ask us questions, and we will help them with the audits. We will help try to make sure that there's consistency to the best we can around the state in our audit position. So that's kind of how we work together. You can see that Debbie and I, stuck in the middle, we don't have any staff. We're called supervisors, but we don't really have any staff. We have one assistant that works with us, and we really do appreciate her, and we'll make sure you have her name and contact information here shortly. But for the most part, you got me and Debbie. Okay? But we do, like I said, we do work with the field supervisors, and so there's a few times, not often, we can't come out and do your work for you, but there's a few times when it doesn't take long. We can call a field soup, or we can email them and say, hey, they're just stuck on this reconciling for this month, and they could use some help, or they have a brand new bookkeeper who's trying to reconcile for the first time, and the other person left and no one else in the office knew what they did before they left. Can you stop in? And many times they will do that. I would expect that at the beginning of the year, many of your field supervisors will stop in just to meet you and say hello and introduce themselves to you, because we want to make sure you know who we are, and you know where you can get help at any time. So with that, let's go ahead and go to the handout that has the lists on it. Let me grab one. On one side of the page, you can see all 92 counties are listed, and then there's a supervisor's name next to it. That's the one that has the 2 columns. So if you find your county and you find your supervisor's last name there, so if I'm in Crawford County, I go across and Shireman is the supervisor's name. If you flip to the back side, I see that Shireman Scott is listed there with a office phone number, and his office location is in New Albany. So this will tell you who your field supervisor is in your district. And it also gives you an office number to be able to contact them. They do spend time driving around supervising their staff. So they try to be in the office a couple of days a week, and they drive around a couple of days a week. In a bigger, more urban areas, you'll find that a lot of the audits are done in the county seat. That is where the city and the county keep a majority of the auditors busy year-round, and so you'll find that they're there a lot more. In a more rural setting, they travel more. So don't hesitate to contact them if you have some kind of an issue with audit planning, need to talk about a field examiner or anything that goes along those lines, they would be very happy to speak with you and very responsive. There are some tricky things since we have had a lot of retirements over the last few years that if your supervisor is Bill Vinson, great guy. He has taken on a lot more territory, so he has 2 offices. And he works out of Newcastle and Muncie, depending on what day of the week it is. So you can see there's some asterisks there to explain which days he's in which office. He does a good job of checking his voice messages, but he has a lot of territory and is kind of spread out. So you have a unique situation there. If your supervisor is Mary Jo Small, she also has 2 offices, but it's just because both counties have been very gracious to give her office space, and they're both large counties that keep her staff busy a lot of the years. So she bounces back and forth between Porter County and Lake County. So there's some information for you. How you contact us. Here's the old-fashioned ways. You aren't going to mail very much to us, but there are some things that auditors do send us every month. And that is the clerks of the circuit court and county treasurers do a monthly report for our office. It is a prescribed form. It may be computerized when you get in the office, so it doesn't look like an old-fashioned typed out form, but those forms, those monthly reports get submitted to the county auditor. The auditor keeps a copy gets sent to the Board of County Commissioners, and a copy gets sent to our office. And so the auditors do mail things to us monthly. And if you have those monthly reports electronic and you want to start emailing those to us, we will gladly accept them in that manner, because we know we don't need to be wasting postage costs on something. We will also accept it by fax if you want to just send it through the fax machine. Because you don't have a scanner, that's fine. All right. The more modern information, if you go to the next slide, we have a website. And we find that we use email a lot. Bruce and I used to be on the phone tons, especially Bruce. He would have his little headset on and be walking across to his law books and walking back and pacing up and down in his office, just talking away to the walls. But now it seems to work a lot better, that you don't have to wait for us to return a phone call to you because we're on our phone talking to somebody else when you called originally. If you have a question that lends itself to just sending us an email, you don't have to wait for us to call you back. Please send it. Debbie and I's email addresses are the bottom 2, but we've also provided you email addresses for the board in case you do have an audit issue, an issue with a field examiner. We know you're not going to have issues with me and Debbie. But in case you would have an issue with Debbie, you can contact them. Yep. No. Our board's very open to communication. They try to attend as many of your functions and training as they can. They do want to hear from you if you have any kind of concern at all, or just have a question that you would prefer to ask them. Don't hesitate. They will gladly respond to you and want to hear from you, as do Debbie and I. So we'll expect that you'll be using those email addresses. We'll go to our website in a little bit, but let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Obviously, we still have some questions that you just can't really do by email. I don't want you to type chapters. And so if we need to have a discussion where it's, give and take, or you want to talk to Debbie, just please give us a call. We'll gladly respond. You contact us at the number towards the bottom, second to the last, the 232-2512. Put us on speed dial. We'll be there. Chances are the person that answers the phone will be, she has a real high little girl's voice. I call her girl, but a young lady named Dana Bacon. Dana, it's not Diana spelled wrong, it's Dana. And she's our assistant. She's our one person to supervise our 1/3 of a person each, because we share her with another person. So poor thing. She has too many supervisors. But she answers the phone a lot. She also keeps the email contact lists. So when you get emails from us about county bulletins, about new information, with any letters, you'll get them from Dana. And so you'll see her contact information as well. There are phone numbers to contact each of the board members. Their secretaries are listed there as well. And then just the main line into our office is the number you see at the very bottom. So if you can contact any of us, but if you have one of those township trustees who has a question about township government and you don't know the answer, but they need to contact us, just give them that number. They can call the main number and say they have a township question. They'll get them to the township supervisor and they can work with them. Okay. There's a lot of other important contacts that you will be working with and you will need throughout your career in county government. The first one is the Auditor State's Office. They were here yesterday. Tim Berry was here, but Dan Baston's going to be here later this morning to talk to you. And he's the settlement director. You're going to work closely with them when you do settlements, when you do excise tax, when you get distributions from the state by EFT, treasurers in the room, you'll work with Dan Baston's group as well. So he'll be here to talk to you about their office. Also, Brian Bailey is the commissioner of the Department of Local Government Finance. They work on tax rates and budgets. So if you're not familiar with them, they also will be here this afternoon to talk with the county auditors. And auditors probably deal with their office more than treasurers. So treasurers, we have something else scheduled for you, but the DLGF will be here to talk to the auditors later on. The Treasurer of State's office is listed there. Treasurers, that is your resource for information on depositories, investments, Trust Indiana, which is an investment pool, a government investment pool. And I believe there's Kelly Mitchell from Trust Indiana as part of the Treasurer of State's office will be here to talk with treasurers this afternoon as well. And Richard Murdoch really did want to come, but he had a conflict in his schedule when we contacted him over a month ago, so he hasn't been able to make it out. But you will meet with him at upcoming trainings, and you'll have access to him. Please use his office. He's very open to that and is very good to talk to when it comes to depositories and investments. You guys won't deal as much with Secretary of State's office now that you're elected. You're in. Supreme Court, that's more for clerks. Occasionally you will hear from the Department of Child Services, one of the more, I don't want to say difficult, but it is kind of cumbersome to learn the Child Support Enforcement Program, and that's your Title 4D program. And so even as auditors, as the fiscal officer, you have some record-keeping things that you do that have to be done, have to be used for reports to DCS. And so you will occasionally hear from Cynthia, and she is the director of the Child Support Bureau and wanted to be here today, but we really didn't have time to get into that. So we have some information we'll hand out to auditors from Cynthia a little bit later this afternoon. The public access counselor, Joe Hogue, is another official that you may have questions for. There's not a lot of information in the treasurer's and auditor's offices that is confidential, but there's sometimes a question, and especially as you get into personnel type information, HIPAA kind of requirements. And Joe Hogue is the person who can help you with knowing when you get a public records request, how to respond, what you can release, how to release it if it needs redacting or it doesn't require that. He's the person who can help you with that. So we've provided you his phone number and email address in case you get those kinds of questions early on. And we'll try to make sure we get him to some of your conferences as well to give you some general information and training on public records and those requests for access. Commission on Public Records assists you with your records retention and also destruction of records. When you can get rid of things, how you clean out the basement and the attic of the courthouse. They're going to be your resource for that. So we have put down the state archivist, who is Jim Corden, and the lady who works with county records commissions is Beverly Stiers. So they both are a resource to you as well. Okay. One of the most important groups that you need to have contact with is your affiliate of the AIC. The Auditors Association, the Treasurers Association are going to be a huge help to you. And if you've been in office, you know that. And I would encourage you to participate in those associations to the extent that you can. You will learn so much more. You will meet contacts that can assist you at the drop of a hat. And these are both fantastic groups of people. They are constantly there to help. If anything happens, they pull together and they get the job done. And we so appreciate that of them. They help us tremendously with our conferences. They do all the fun parts, the things that encourage you to participate and meet and greet others. It's difficult to go to a conference, especially if you have a small county and you can't afford for, to take more people out of the office to come to conference, so you have to come by yourself. It can be a bit intimidating. These conferences are big. It's 300 and some people in a room of training, and it can be difficult until you meet some people. So I would encourage you to at least introduce yourself to the officers of your association. They'll help you find neighboring county officials, and it'll just make the job more enjoyable and easier for you. And so both of your affiliate associations are here with us today. I know the Auditors Association President Gail Dotes is back there. You got some Treasurers Association. I know Mary Alice Gregg's here, your past president. Nancy Marsh was here yesterday. I know she'll be here today as well. I don't see her. So, yeah, Nancy's here. Don't be confused. That's Ann. We're not going to let her get away with that. But no, your associations are here, and we're going to let them talk to you a bit this afternoon, give you some information, and make sure everybody gets directories and knows how to find each other, and they will give you some information, and it will just be invaluable to you. So I encourage you to take advantage of that, those associations, because they are quite valuable. Let's talk a bit about these audit reports. It's kind of scary to get audited. Our agency has what we call a peer review that we have to go through each 3-year cycle. And so we get audited by other auditors in other states and the federal government. They come in and look at how we perform our audits and what our quality control system looks like and how we've performed. And it's a bit scary. We all want to do well. You would not have braved putting your name on the ballot if you were not a person who wanted to do good and wanted to make sure things are done right. Because that's a scary thing, to put your name on the ballot and be open to all of the public knowing that you want this office and you don't know if you'll get it or not. Everyone knows you want the job, but maybe they won't give it to you. It's kind of a scary thing. So audits can also be scary, and we know that, but we're not meant to be scary. Debbie and I, neither one have ever taken anybody to jail. I don't know any field examiner who has. Now, don't get me wrong, some people have gone to jail for things that they have done wrong, but we are not the persons that take them there. We may help build the case against them, but we haven't taken them there. So, when we come in the door, we don't have handcuffs, but we will be kind of an annoyance, and we know that going in. So for that, we will try to answer your questions and give you a little bit of a benefit back, because we know that it's time-consuming to go through the audit process, but it's necessary for all of us. So we will help you by having discussions with you well in advance. We'll be looking at your annual report information. We'll be looking at last year's information and trying to work with you to figure out if you need a federal audit this year, if you don't need a federal audit. And so we'll be trying to provide you the service that you do need, and we'll work with you to do that. We know that you don't know all of the requirements right off the bat coming in, and that you may be a little new to it. So we'll be asking you for some information and try to have discussions back with you about what to expect during that audit. Federal audits have a lot more hoops and requirements, so they do take a little bit longer. It means our field staff will be there a little bit longer than if you have an examination audit, an examination report. So, but one of the things that you'll care most about, auditors put a lot of time and effort into getting us financial statements to audit, and they are important. Bankers don't give loans without audited financial statements. Bondholders will not invest in municipal bonds with you if you don't have audited financial statements. In fact, you don't get a bond rating unless you have audited financial statements. And so those financial statements can play an important role in your county. And a lot of time and effort gets spent on those financial statements. And as the auditors or the chief financial officer, they're responsible for those statements. And those statements get put into the annual report, what we call the annual audit report. Then we put our opinion on those financial statements of whether it's fairly presented. So that would be an unqualified opinion, which is actually good. My husband thinks that's bad. He doesn't get the whole CPA thing, so unqualified. Are you calling officials unqualified? I said, no. We're saying their statements are fairly presented without any qualifications or conditions. So unqualified is the best opinion you can get. We do occasionally have to modify those opinions, and you can get a qualified opinion, meaning you have some kind of exception. But other than that, your statements are fairly presented. Or you can have an adverse or a disclaimed opinion where we won't even give an opinion on your financial statements. But we work together, and for the most part, counties don't normally have disclaimers. They don't normally have adverse opinions. We have some qualifications that may not affect bondholders or any of those things much. It may be for not including some conservancy districts or those kinds of things that might have to be combined into your financial statements. Or it may be that, and for most counties, you're going to get an unqualified opinion. But that opinion gets put in the annual report. And then if you have a federal audit, there are several opinions and schedules and other information that have to be contained within that annual audit report. So if a grantor asks you for an audit report, they want that annual report. They want the information about the federal grants. If a bank or a bond ratings company, most likely you're working with a consultant, but if they ask you for a report, they want that annual report. But the one that everybody cares about, other than those people, is the supplemental reports. The supplemental reports are the reports that contain your audit results and comments, which are basically our findings during the audit. If we find noncompliance with a law or a uniform compliance guideline, that's where we take exception. An officer only gets a supplemental audit report if we have exceptions, if we have audit findings. If we come in and audit and the treasurer has no audit findings, the treasurer does not have a supplemental audit report. Maybe the sheriff gets one, maybe the highway department gets one, and maybe the auditor and treasurer don't get one. I would say most auditors do get one, so don't think it's the end of the world if you get one, but take it seriously, and we'll help you work towards finding some solutions. Auditors have a lot of hats to wear, and there's a lot of duties, and it's hard to do everything exactly perfect because you're working with so many other offices, so many other officials. You're relying on them. Information's going back and forth. It might not be perfect the first time, but if you do have audit concerns, it'll be in those supplemental reports. One of the first things I would encourage you to do, if you have not already seen the audit report that was last issued for the office that you're going into, I would look to see if there is one and read what it says, because that may be where you're starting if those items haven't been corrected. Those may be some of the first things you'll want to work on after you get your feet firmly planted on the ground in the office. So do not hesitate to take a look at those. The audit reports are public once they're filed by the state examiner, and they are all published on our website. Up until the point that they are filed by the state examiner, they are not public. We will discuss items with you during the audit and ask for information. You will probably not be surprised by anything that you find in an audit report after you've been in office and gone through the audit process, because you will have been involved in those discussions. And we will ask, well, do you have anywhere that documents you've certified these claims? If your answer to us is no, then you know that that's probably something you need to correct, and you won't be surprised by the audit report. At least that's our goal. We never think you should be surprised. You're involved with the audit process. You should understand. But that does not mean that you get to go out and just tell the media, well, person across the hall didn't have their claims in order. It's not for public discussion until it is filed by the state examiner. So we will have some conferences with you and discussions with you that shouldn't be released until we have all of the information and it's all been reviewed. During the audit, we ask a lot of questions. We ask for documentation. We review a lot of documents. We go through tests, samples. We don't look at 100% of everything. We don't ever issue anything that says you did a great job. Debbie and I will tell you that, right? But the audit reports are negative assurance. If you don't get a comment, you can hope that everything's good. At least materially, it's good. Yes.
Just the supplemental reports, are they put on the website also?
Yes, they are. All the reports are supplemental.
Okay, so I know how to search for the annual report. You would just ask for a supplemental?
It still will come up all at the same time. So if you search by county and the name of the unit you want, or by county and the year, you'll get a lot of units, but you can find the supplementals there. And if you have any trouble with it and you wonder, well, I don't see one, but is there really one? Debbie and I can help you with that as well. So the website's a little, I don't know, it's a little tricky. But yeah, but it is there, and so you can find them. You can also ask for the hard copies in the current auditor's office. They should have all the supplemental audit reports for every department and office of the county in the auditor's office.
Our county we had our exit conferences in like the early part of November, I think. The supplemental report, does that come after the fact? I mean, none of that's gonna be online until we get the official something back from you guys, is that?
On the day that it's filed, you get an email with a copy of the report. And then we send out the hard copy that same day, so it follows a bit later. And then overnight, it goes on the web. So you'll get the email, and then the next day, it'll be on the website. But these are some audit reports. This is the FAT report that has the financial statements in it. And this is the skinny report that has just the supplementals. And you can see it only has about 4 pages in it. So that's kind of what they look like if you have to go look for the hard copies in the auditor's office. But there's also electronic copies that are sent now. I think just one hard copy gets sent to the auditor's office for filing for public records. But like you were talking about the exit conference, at the end of all the audit field work, all the processes, there will be some preliminary reviews of our field staff's work, and they will ask to meet with you if you have a supplemental report, or if you're in the auditor's office, we're going to meet with you regardless on the annual report, okay? And that meeting is called an exit conference. And at that meeting, we will show you the draft report, anything that you want to see in it, including the audit results and comments, but also the financial statements, the opinions. You have at that meeting an opportunity to tell us whether you would like to respond to the report and have that response included in this bound report. So no one sees what we found without seeing your explanation. And so you do have that opportunity. And at the exit conference, they'll ask you to state whether you want to respond or not, so we know whether to look for that official response coming into our office and get it matched up with the audit report. And in a normal situation, you'll have 10 days to send us that response, while the report itself is going through the remainder of the review processes. And so there's more field reviews. There's an office review that Debbie and I do for these, every county report that's issued. Our quality control division may be looking at some of the reports as well. And then when it finally gets processed and it prettied up and in the right format, then then the board looks at it, and then they will file that report at that time. So it does take some time. If we're not under a deadline, the normal process would be that the field staff can have up to 30 days doing their final reviews before they even send that report to the office. So if your exit conference was in November, they're still probably doing the field reviews. But at the time it comes to our office, we'll finalize our reviews, do the processing, and you'll get the email when it actually is going to be released. And then the next day it'll be on the website. Okay. Yes.
How long did the auditor's office have to keep those supplemental reports forever?
Yep.
The hard copy? In the basement?
they're moldy and crusty in the basement, but they're if you work with the Public Records Commission, there is a process where the originals can be either microfilmed or some other process possibly that would have approval to be permanent, and then you can get rid of the hard copy originals, and those microfilm documents become your original. I know microfilming is allowed. I'm not sure if any imaging is allowed for permanent records yet, but you could work with the Public Records Commission, because at some point you run out of space, and no one asks for them when they're really, really old. Although it might be good for us to have that first report from 1909, whoever got that. It might be neat to have. Okay. How are we doing on time, Debbie? We're running out? Okay. Okay, we got to get to some of this other information. One thing that we have pointed out is some legislation from 2011 that went into place, but officials tend to sort of forget about it, because when you have kind of one of these emergency situations where somebody has stolen or you've lost money, if you have some kind of shortage you can't identify and you know there's a problem, it's not the first thing that you think about. You think about getting help, but you don't necessarily always think to contact us. But there is a law that requires that you contact us immediately if you have a variance that is irregular or some kind of error that has happened, a loss, a shortage, a theft of any government funds or property. And then we have some processes we have to carry out. And I just want to tell you that because we've had some situations where it's not necessarily that we're going to come in and do a full-blown audit, but we will come in and do some procedures that we are required to do by law. But the thing is that we've had some media ask us if some of you have reported these incidents to us. And in one situation, a sheriff reported it to the Indiana State Police. The state police were doing their investigation. They terminated the person that was involved in the wrongdoing. And so they had tried to do all the right things, but they forgot to contact us or didn't know to contact us. So we just want you to be aware so that in that situation, it doesn't look like you failed to do your duty. Do make sure you contact us. You're going to contact me or Debbie, and we're going to take your report and get you moving on corrections, and then we'll work on our part. Yes.
Is that just for our office, or like for the auditor, do we report if it happens in another office under another level?
Someone needs to report in your county for any county, but this also goes for any unit of government. So townships, towns, cities, libraries, they all have to report to us if they have any kind of a loss. So yeah, if it happens in another office, encourage that person to report it to us so that they don't have that embarrassment, or offer to report it for them if you want to. You're not going to be cited for not reporting something in the sheriff's department, but I felt bad for that sheriff because it wasn't that he was trying to cover it up, because he called in the state police and everybody else. It just didn't get reported to us. So, okay. There are things yes.
Does that go for like an
Yes.
office where the last day of paying taxes and you have a line of people at the end of the day, you know, one of your tellers finds out they've got more money in there than they should.
Yes, because it does say erroneous or irregular variances. So yes, you have to report the overages too. I do think you have some time to investigate those to see if, something comes of it. You can figure out what happened. But if you just know they were counting out $100 bills and I probably took one too many, and you can't prove it, but yes, go ahead, err on the side of reporting, because the worst thing that we'll do is look at your controls and say, which we would do during the audit anyway, and move along. Maybe make a recommendation if we could find something you can do better, but we all make mistakes, so that does happen. There are some things that you need to do before you take office. I'm going to try to hit the high points here, and if we have time, we'll go back to some of the others. Signatures. You'll all be signing checks, whether you're an auditor or a treasurer. Usually that's done electronically. You'll need to find out how that works and be contacting the county's vendors to make sure you can get those signature changes made, whether they're bitmaps in the computer or what they are. Those will have to be changed. If there's signature stamps or file stamps that have the name of the official on them in your office, you will want to start working on getting those ordered. On the next slide, you need to find out about taking the oath of office. Some counties have a big ceremony. Others, you are required to go before the judge and take the oath, or they name an official. Maybe the commissioners are going to do it. Find out, make sure you get your oath taken, and make sure that you get your official bond. Both of these things have to be done in order for you to take office. So if you're an auditor, your official bond is $30,000, or it can be more if your council sets it at that, but it's to be at least $30,000. If you are a treasurer, it's $30,000 per $1 million in receipts from the previous fiscal year. So the last full fiscal year we had was 2011. So we look at the receipts for the year of 2011. For every $1 million, you have to have $30,000 in coverage if you're a treasurer. That amount also is fixed by your county council. Yes.
I'm currently working in the auditor's office, and I have a $15,000 bond that's not due till June, I think. But the current auditor still needs to get me a new bond for 30. Is that correct?
Your bond should be 30. So the county needs to get you a bond for $30,000. So whether they do it by getting a rider or an amendment to just add the other $15,000, that's fine. Did you have a question, Martha?
Millions of dollars. Is that for the county side only, or for if you're doing all the taxes? That's a lot of millions.
It's a lot of millions. It's all the collections in the treasurer's office from the last fiscal year that was complete. So it's all the monies that you handle, and that's a lot in a treasurer's office, yes.
There's a max on that bond.
300,000 is the maximum. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So you'll want to find out who your county uses for insurance company and start getting that going. Your bond has to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and it needs to be filed in the county recorder's office. And there are people who will be looking to make sure that happens. So please don't fail. Yes?
I went to get my bond, process started. They wanted to know how much I was in debt. They wanted to know the value of my house, my personal property.
Bonding companies, we've had a lot of problems since the economic downturn. So bonding companies are going to look closely at you. They're going to look at your credit ratings. They're going to look at what assets you have. And they're going to look to see if you've had a divorce, a personal bankruptcy, all kinds of things that they consider are red flags. So I know it seems a bit intrusive, and you shouldn't have to be rich to hold office. So you are elected to take office, but you do have to have this bond in order to take it. So if you have problems, contact the AIC or contact us, and we'll try to find where other counties have gotten a bond at a reasonable cost. But it is one of those things we're very aware has become a difficulty, a hurdle for people that it never was in the past, but it is now. So it's not just you. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
No one tells you those things for you to
No one does tell you those things. The county chair is not going to tell you that before you run. Is there a question in the back? Yeah.
Do all of the deputies and the auditors and the treasurers have to have bonds, and how much are they?
The deputies are not required to be bonded, but the county council makes the determination of whether they will be covered either under a blanket bond or some kind of individual coverage, and that's up to the council. Okay. All right. Next slide. We're going to, main things. How are you going to get the keys to the office? If hopefully there'll be a smooth transition, you'll be able to go in and work with them. But maybe not yet, okay? And so if the time is not yet that you'll be working well. Martha, if you have trouble getting the keys from Ann, just let us know. But do, work with the commissioner's secretary, or if you don't have a commissioner's secretary, you may contact your commissioner in your district. They may have to get with the facilities person, or however you're going to handle that, but make them aware you've got to have access to your office. If you have a safe in the treasurer's office, you need to work on getting combinations to the safe. And then are you going to have those things changed after you get into office? You'll have to consider those things. You need to work on setting up your computer access, your logons, your user IDs, your passwords. So hopefully many of you got a chance to meet some of your vendors last night, find out who your vendors are for your software programs, and try to get to talk with them before you get into office so that you'll be prepared. I know you won't know everything walking in the door, and we all know that, but and there'll be some staff there that probably will know how to get in the computer and have access, but you'll want to also start making those arrangements. Auditors, be prepared that you're going to have to write checks for everybody that is new to have a cash drawer and to have petty cash accounts. The treasurer needs to know that hopefully you have some money in the safe, and if not, those people are going to have to go cash those checks at the bank, because you don't know if your cash drawer is going to be turned in to somebody else at the auditor's office, and maybe they'll lock it up, or maybe it goes back to the bank, and you may start today and not have cash in your safe. So you need to check on that. Be prepared to the best of your ability for those things. Also, I would say that don't hesitate. If you can't get in your county's office, don't hesitate to contact another county that might have the same software systems, or a neighboring county. I don't know of any that would not welcome you. And I mean, even no matter what your party or anything, I don't know of any of them that would not welcome you to come in and watch them for a day, learn from them.